What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Starting Small Music Podcast, and today I have a little bit of a different type of episode for you guys. For the past year, I've interviewed some of the top songwriters, producers, artists, session players, and players on the road in the music industry. In every interview, I close my interview by asking what a piece of advice there is to the younger musicians of the world. And this episode is a compilation of their answers. I truly think if you're an aspiring musician, this episode could truly change your life and your outlook on music. In a world full of false gurus and people shoving information down your throat that might not be true, this video is the exact opposite of people giving real-world advice from real musicians that live and breathe the music industry. I know as an artist and songwriter, I've learned so much myself by talking to these individuals, and I hope you do too in this interview. Thank you so much for supporting Starting Small Music in 2022. I hope to see you guys around in 2023, and enjoy the episode.
Just keep a smile on your face and it'll be okay. Try not to be bitter, you gotta do it either way. Keep a smile on your face and it'll be okay. So when life throws a jab, you gotta duck out of the way.
What's your advice to any young songwriters or artists out there that are at home, working on songs, maybe writing in their room, thinking about making that move to Nashville? What do you have to say to them?
I think, hey, just keep doing what you're doing. You know, keep writing, recording, learning everything you can to put your stuff out there, put your music out there, connect. You know, one thing I wish I had when I was, coming from a small town is just the connection that we have today with social media and everything. It's so easy to connect with people if you want, whether it's dropping a message to whoever and just putting your stuff out there for people to hear. It's so much more accessible, I feel like. So I think just keep putting stuff out there, keep working hard. I think persistence is the biggest key to all this. For my career, it's ups and downs. It's all over the place. So this isn't not for the faint of heart. You got to stay driven, and it's the grindstone, and just stay persistent. Don't take no for an answer, and just keep grinding out. And if you can if you're living out there in a small town, I wish I'd moved probably somewhere maybe a little earlier, but everybody's got their own story. Everybody's got their own thing. So if you can move to a music hub where if you really want to do it and to try and pursue it, then I think that'll give you an advantage. But there's a lot of ways to do it. So just do you.
So what is your key to longevity in the music business? Because I mean, you've had a career that's literally lasted 20 plus, even close to 30 years. Like what would be your advice to all the young musicians out there to keep a career that long and that successful?
Well, I'm going on 35 years now almost.
Wow.
So it's been a long time. Yeah. The one piece of advice that I would give to everybody, there are players, and I'm surrounded by them right now, that have, in a weird way, infinitely more technique than I have. Not infinitely, but plenty more, technically. But the two things I think you should have are a sense of rhythm, right?
Mm-hmm.
A solid sense of rhythm, an understanding of that. How to play behind, how to play ahead, and how to lock in, and how sparse you should be, things like that. And then the other thing is, your ideas are your stock in trade. That is what you are. It's not so much about the playing, even though you have to do that, as your ideas. That's the most important thing. And if you have those and you remain yourself throughout that, and don't watch YouTube videos and think that you need to emulate those, be yourself, then that will work for you. And you never know how long it's going to last. I feel very lucky that it's lasted as long as it has. And I thought around the turn of the century, it's probably around 2002, there was a feeling in me where I thought that it would end for some reason. I go, how could this logically go on? I remember having this conversation. I remember who was there. I remember talking about this in a studio. maybe even that same darn studio, come to think of it, that's now
wow.
United Western, where I did that. Yeah, it's really strange that all these things happen in these rooms. But it was around that time, and I remember the drummer was Abe Laborio Jr., and it was a session where it was some record that never saw the light of day, but I remember us all sitting around and talking. And I remember the engineer is now not with us, he's passed on, but I remember us all talking with this feeling like, how can the music business possibly last with you know? And now it's 22 years later or whatever it is. I can't believe it.
Yeah.
You know, I was only a third of the way through. I had no idea.
And last question for you, we always ask our guests, what's your advice to drummers or just musicians out there that maybe in high school practicing their craft, wanting to move to Nashville one day? What is your advice to those people out there?
Well, what do you play? Are you a songwriter or what do you do?
I'm an artist songwriter pursuing in country music. Yep.
All right, man. See, so you're really forward thinking here. You got the podcast, which is a great way to connect with people. Great. Love it. What was the question? Advice. Yes.
Advice, yeah.
So yeah. So you know, location is everything. So if you want to write songs, it's really best to be in the songwriting capital of the world. And that's what Nashville is. Like all day, every day, people are putting stories to chords and bringing a story to life. That's what we're really doing, is telling a story. So if you want to be a songwriter, an artist, a song plugger, an instrumentalist, a touring musician, a recording musician, it can be done. And there's all these other jobs that are connected to the industry: stylists, PR people, social media managers, bus drivers, road chefs, all these people that make this stuff happen. These jobs exist in Nashville because we have this big machinery of this whole web of stuff. And to bring it up, to make it all happen, you've got to have all these jobs, and all these cogs of the wheel all kind of fit together. So if you're passionate about music, get to Nashville, crash some parties, shake some hands, put your best foot forward. And, you know, hopefully you have a skill set that has been cultivated and nurtured through those 10,000 hours, 10,000 hours of effort. And that's how you become an expert. And then even when you get there, you still got to be putting your best foot forward, never having a bad day, never mailing it in, because you never know who's watching. So say yes to everything. Do those co-writes, do the open mic nights, take every gig that comes along, have a smile on your face, be enthusiastic, be passionate, and be patient, because there are no overnight successes. Most overnight successes are people that have 10, 20, 30 years in the trenches, right? And if you chose the right thing to do with your life, it never feels like hard work. And since it doesn't feel like hard work, it's so easy to get up and do it every day, all day. And the more time you put into it, the better it increases your chances for success over the long term. So have the skill, show up with a smile on your face, make it about people, never make it about yourself. Like for me, my job is not about like, look at me as a drummer. My job is to make the job that we're doing on stage super easy for that band, make Jason comfortable, bring those songs to life, rinse and repeat day after day, tour after tour, year after year. And that's how you get a job, and that's how you keep a job in the music business.
Kind of wrap up, what is your advice to those people that's dream it is to maybe specifically be a session musician, to be the next David Dorn, or be the next Just Note-Strander? What is your advice to those people in high school or on the come up right now?
Well, I mean, the biggest thing that I can say is listen to music. Listen to everything you can find, because, as a player, it's looking for inspiration, but learning from people that have already do it. And like, so many great records been made, and like start to actually like dissect what a record is. What are the sounds going on? What are these parts? Why is this part being done? So these are things that you can do on your own. This is like homework assignments that you can just do. And we all love music anyway. So just listening to music, but not just as a casual fan, but actually like listening into the music, learning parts, learning how to play what's there, try to get sounds that are super close to what you're hearing. And then, also, I think it's really important that you can come up with together. I think in the music industry right now, it's like finding a group of people that can all kind of push each other really important, man. It's like finding your group, find people that are like-minded. Even in cities, you might not be in Nashville, you know, but you found somebody that's a great musician in your town. There's other people that love music equally. Go out there and start playing, even if it's just to say, hey, come over to the house. We're gonna try to break down this song, learn something about it. It's taking that type of initiative. And then, you know, if you really want to be a session player, I think you do have to move to one of the major music towns. I think that's just kind of part of it. That's not always the case, but I you know, the reality is a lot of the stuff that's done is in Nashville or LA, maybe more in Nashville than any other place, to be completely honest with you.
Yeah.
Now we have these sort of opportunities in like Sound Better and these remote sites. Get on there, like put yourself out there, force yourself to almost like just have to get in it and do it, you know. And then you know, the biggest thing that I would say is like you practice because you want to be better. Like you don't have to be told to practice. You practice because that's just innately you want to be a better version of yourself, musician. The thing that you have to really practice and hone in on is being a better networker, being out there and meeting people, trying to actually say, hey, I've got something to offer, you know, and then following up on that. And so, yeah, that's my advice, man. Hopefully that helps somebody.
I kind of like to close out the interview by asking your advice, not only to people that want to be tour managers, but like I said, someone that is working on the management side. What do you look for in like an artist that's on the rise? Like, what's your advice to them as well?
Well, you know, specifically, I think that networking is very important, and being involved in the local community where you live within music is very important too, because someone told me once, it's not necessarily who you know, it's about who knows you. And somebody that sees, you know, potential in you, you know, is going to be the make or break to you getting an opportunity to show your skills, because it is hugely due to luck, I do believe. Like, I think that you have to really be in the right place at the right time, and you have to be lucky to get that opportunity, but you also have to be prepared and you have to be ready. So that's kind of where the hard work versus luck thing goes in. You know, you have to know your stuff. You have to be on top of it, organized. You have to present yourself in a way that's going to encourage them to want to hire you to represent, you know, whatever artist you're eventually going to work for. But yeah, work hard, be nice, be engaging, ask questions. Don't be afraid to make mistakes, because mistakes happen, but show your true understanding of how you made the mistake, what the mistake was, and how you're going to modify your actions or modify to not make that mistake in the future. Because all that stuff is very important. And I also believe that regardless of what you're trying to do, if there's a way for you to get close to that by doing something else, like through proximity, I think that's very important. Like for example, myself working for the lighting company instead of the audio company. If you really want to do audio, I completely understand. But if you want to be involved in the general, you know, in the general purpose of putting on a show, it might be a good idea to try and work for these other companies too, because they have less people applying to them, less people that actually want to be doing it applying to them, because there's really no lighting program. There's no video program. There's film, but it's just a little different. So, yeah.
And so to wrap it up, what is your advice to aspiring songwriters and artists that want to be in your spot?
Oh God, I feel like I am not at all qualified to speak on this, but I will say yes to everything, because I feel like all through college, which like I said, things end up working out the way they should, but all through college, I was like a scaredy cat, and that's why I didn't play shows. And the day that I decided like, nope, I'm just going to say yes to everything that comes my way, regardless of if I think I'm above it or below it, I'm just going to say yes and do it, whether it's a show or whether it's a write or just like meeting and having a drink with somebody. Just say yes and do it, and you never know what could come from it, and you might end up just really having fun.
Just to wrap things up for you, I always like to ask my guests at the end what their advice to their younger self would be, or someone just that wants to do what you're doing, whether that be tour managing or playing for an artist. What's your advice to them?
Absolutely, man. this I thought you might ask this question, but I've been fortunate enough to get a lot of really good advice over the years, and I think the simplest way to put it, there's a lot of things I think in the music industry, in a lot of industries, but like if this is the industry you're focusing on, I think it can be overwhelming or discourage. You know, it's obviously very competitive. Like if say you're a guitar player moving to Nashville, you know I felt that way. Like, oh, there's 100 guys playing right now that are way better than I'll ever be. Like the talent here is incredible. So that can be discouraging. And Nashville overall is a very like uplifting place. It's not like cutthroat. Like there is all that talent out there, but like people want to help out, which is great. But I think the main thing, obviously do whatever you can to get good at your craft, whether you're a guitar player or want to be a tour manager or want to be a photographer, like whatever your thing is. And I guess I'm proof you don't have to pick just one. You can, if there's a lot of things you enjoy doing, you can pursue all of them. But the biggest thing I think is just like how you treat people and being a good person. And like, cause so much of like touring, especially, you know, we play for 45 minutes a night. Most of the time is spent hanging out, you know, in the green room, on the bus. Like it's a lot of just like close quarters time where you're just hanging out and doing whatever, you know? And so the way you treat people, if you treat people well and respectfully, that's, I think, the thing. And obviously you have, if you can back that up with like your talent or your craft, whatever that is, that's great. But there's also plenty of very talented people who would maybe not get asked, you know, wouldn't maybe not get something if they're not like respectful or nice or fun to be around, whatever it is. So I think the biggest thing is just remember, like, always treat people well, because you never know what that could lead to. Like in 2019, when I met Ernest, and, you know, we spent a decent amount of time together. We were on the road for a month or so. But I never could have forecasted like, oh yeah, 3 years later, you're going to be playing guitar for him, playing these like awesome shows. I never could have anticipated that at the time, but because we had a good relationship, and his manager and I, especially because we had a good relationship, then he thought to, you know, there's 100 people he could have called before me, but we had some sort of relationship that was good, and he thought to call me. So I think, yeah, just focusing on the things that you can control. You can't control anyone else. You can't control how talented anyone else is, but you can control how you treat people and how you interact with people. And that's the thing I think that can get you a long ways. I always hear, I've never met him, but I always hear Garth Brooks is like one of the nicest people you'll ever meet. Like he's very personable, and like if you shake his hand and tell him you have a sister, and 6 months later he'll remember he'll ask how your sister's doing, kind of thing. Like,
wow, that's special.
Yeah. So, and he's Garth Brooks. Like, right. So I think it's just so much about how you treat people. That can be the thing that will you know, inspire people to want to hire you or reach out to you again. So, yeah.
And now I like to close my interviews all the time with your advice to the younger version of yourself, someone else that's wanting to be where you are at your age. What would you say to that aspiring musician?
I would say on the songwriting side that no matter how crappy you think the song is that you're working on and that you're writing and you don't believe in it, write it. Finish it. And because if I've learned anything, it's that you have to write the crappy songs and get those out of the way to get to the good ones. And you know, every lyric and every melody that you write is exercising that muscle, and it's conditioning you to become a better songwriter. And just like athletes go to training every single day, you have to, you know, do that. And so don't give up on it. And as an artist, I would say that at the very beginning of being an artist, you're getting pulled and you're getting molded and you're getting, you know, shaped into what you want to be. And, you know, this idol, if you will, to in the spotlight to other people. And you have to be really precious with that and make sure that you know, how you're getting molded and shaped, whether it's by yourself or by a team that you surrounded yourself with, that's who you want to be, and that truly is you. Because if things happen like you want them to, then that's going to be, you know, your image for the rest of your career. And you want that to be something that's uplifting and that's, you know, something that's to be looked up to by younger kids. And so, you know, stay true to yourself and don't let people, whether it's radio or record labels or managers or stylists or whatever, you know, don't let them make you somebody that you're not proud of.
So I like to close out the interview with any advice that you would give, not only to your younger self, but people that want to be in your position in, say, 10 years.
Man, that's a tough one. Like I said, I mean, I sort of said it earlier, but it's just I'll say there's a fine line between confidence and cocky. People can pick up on both. You don't want to be timid when you're going into a situation where you're confident in your abilities, but you also don't want to turn people off by your attitude. But just don't be afraid to put yourself out there. Be confident in your abilities. Make connections with people, even if someone, and it's not to say they don't seem important, but you never know who you never know, especially playing on Broadway, you never know who's watching you in the bar in Nashville or who's going to see you in this situation or the other. So always every time you're out in a professional setting, just be professional. Act, you know, just try to do your best and put yourself out there, and just don't be afraid and don't be afraid to be told no too. I mean, when I first started, you know, trying to break into the Broadway and touring scene, I mean, there's a lot of no's, a lot of no replies, and that can be, you know, after a while that can be a little disheartening, but just try to keep your head on straight and just be professional and most of all be confident and have a good time.
So we like to close out the interview with what your advice would be to like a younger version of yourself, maybe someone that's going to be doing what you're doing 10 to 15 years from now. And even kind of going off that too, you have over 63,000 followers on TikTok and have had a couple go over 1 million views. Do you have any advice for TikTok as well to like the aspiring artists out there?
Yeah, I mean, the only advice that I can give myself about that and to other people is that you can't be so precious with what you post. I think that a lot of times people over edit or over record trying to get that perfect take. But the videos that have done the best for me are the ones where I like had 10 minutes to film it in my bedroom. I grabbed my guitar, I sang like an imperfect verse and put it up, because that authenticity and that rawness is what TikTok loves. So just post, you know, there's really nothing to lose. Just put it up and someone's going to find it. So that's my TikTok advice. My advice to my younger self is probably don't be afraid to build the calluses at 13. Just do it, you know, like nobody's going to do it for you. So go stick with guitar lessons, try things out. Don't be afraid to show other people your work. You're never going to be good the first time you do something. So get all that out of the way and then get all the practicing out of the way so that you can really find your voice. I wish I had started earlier, but I don't regret it. I think my journey is exactly what it should have been. But I do wonder, like, oh, if I had really taken it seriously from 13, where could I be now? So yeah, if you want to do something, start trying and don't be afraid that it's hard. You know, when it gets hard, that means it's working.
So kind of to close things out, I kind of like to ask everybody what their advice is to be to someone that wants to be where you are, or even to your younger self. What's your advice to someone that wants to be a hit songwriter and artist in the music industry?
Man, there's a lot of things I could say. I think first of all, you know, you have to love the process, because if you're working for results, you know, the results may come or they may not. You know, this industry is so crazy and it's so difficult. You know, you're up against not just everyone else in Nashville who has a guitar and is trying to do it, but everyone in the world who can, you know, has a phone and a computer and can record a song. You know, you're competing against so many people, but if you don't love the process, you'll burn out really quick. So make sure you enjoy what you're doing, keep your head down. In the comparison game to myself, I would say, as a younger myself, I would say, you know, it's so easy to get lost in seeing what somebody's doing over there on the left, somebody's doing over there on the right. But it's important not to really try to compare yourself. Be happy for other people's success, and don't get discouraged, you know, when you're not moving at the same pace as someone else.
So kind of to wrap up the interview, I always like to ask my guests what their advice is to the younger musicians who wants to be in your shoes in the next couple of years.
Man, you know, I would say the biggest thing is just sticking to it. Like, you know, I've been dropped from 4 record deals, I've been dropped from 2 publishing deals. You know, every time you think, oh, this is the one, we're gonna make it, we're gonna do, and then something hits you like a truck, and you're like, yeah, I thought that was it, or maybe I should do something else. You know, I've thought that over and over and over. But I just am too stubborn and love music too much to stop. So I just kept putting in the time and the work and the hours. And, you know, they say that 10,000 hour thing, you know, about being good at something. And for me, it's been like that times 10, 100,000 hours is what it's taken me. And so I feel like putting time in your craft, not giving up. And even on days when you don't feel like doing it, you know, whether it's writing or playing or practicing or, you know, whatever you can do to prepare you for it. I think that's probably what I would tell anybody who's either starting out or stuck in a spot.
So kind of to like wrap up the interview, I always like to ask, what would your advice be to an aspiring musician that would want to be a session musician like yourself, or be touring the country just in a band?
I think there's especially in the age of like in the age of social media, like instructional courses and people who are instructional minded, there's a lot of stuff about like getting skill sets together and doing this stuff. And while it's important, I really think it's very, very, very wise to cultivate your thing and get really good at it and get really good at working with other people, and just always be doing something and be around other people and working with them, because it's as much luck as it is hard work.
Totally.
And always be doing something that you care about, because that influences where you get hired and who you get hired by, where you work. If you're putting art out that you care about and would put your name on, that's great and very obviously genuine, that goes very far. And sometimes it works out, and that's all you have to do.
So I like to close all my interviews with what your advice is to aspiring musicians and songwriters out there.
Wow. I would say there's no better time than now. And with that being said, just to chase something, your dream. But one of the quotes that's been sticking out to me, and it's been popping up a lot of different places, and I don't think that's on accident, but I'm paraphrasing here, but nothing gets done in your comfort zone. So, you know, it's the old things like, you got to be uncomfortable to get things done. You're moving, you're going for something. If you're in your comfort zone, and I've been there to where, wow, I'm playing this way safe. I'm not getting anything done. I'm not pushing myself. I'm not working with new people. I'm just writing with the same people over and over. There's nothing wrong with that. It's going to work at some point if it's meant to be. But from my experience, I've learned, get out of that dang comfort zone, have some fun, and just go for it, man. It's not going to hurt anything.
Heck yeah. Actually, and one more thing, what's next for your solo career as well?
So next for me is putting out more music, and obviously getting some more shows together. Where are you from by chance?
South Bend, Indiana. Notre Dame.
Oh my God, man, we're pretty much neighbors where I'm from.
Yeah.
Well, you know, a big goal for me is to hit that Midwest circuit, you know, going to places like Indianapolis, and then moving over to my home state in Columbus and Cincinnati, and then Illinois, just really honing in on where a lot of my base is, along with putting new music out. So I think those things will go hand in hand. Get new music out and then go tour on it.
Now, I like to close all my interviews out by asking my guests, is there something that you've learned during your time, like trying to pursue this career as a musician, and kind of what your advice would be to people that are pursuing music, you know?
Yeah, I'd say that, especially if you're young in the industry, there's like two things, especially being like a young woman. There's going to be a lot of people that are going to try to pressure you into becoming someone that you necessarily don't want to be. And as long as you know your boundaries, you know who you are and what you're comfortable doing and what you're comfortable with being, like, you know, just because something's necessarily trending or something is like something is going to look good from a marketing standpoint. It doesn't mean that you need to be that. And I just think that, and also for young people, like a lot of people had an identity crisis when I turned 20 because I'm not a teenager anymore. And it's like, you can still make good music after you're like, just because you're not 15 anymore. You know, you don't have to be that 15, 16-year-old prodigy. You can do music well into your 70s, 80s, like Iggy Pop. You know, music is for everyone.
So I kind of like to end my interviews with kind of you giving advice to anyone that's wanting to be in your position, either as a songwriter or an artist, something that you might have learned on your path to where you are now.
Man, I'm smiling because it's like I hated when people said this to me, and I didn't do it for a long time, and then I finally did, and like it's the only way I've ever gotten better at writing songs. Reps. Write the songs. Write the bad ones. Write the decent ones. Write the good ones. Write the better than that last one. Write all of them. It doesn't matter. You like it's like. The analogy for me is like the guy that's been in the gym for 10 years, like lifting the same weight over and over, like dude, like he's going to bench more than you. And like your job at the end of the day is to bench more than everyone else. So you got to have the same reps. You know what I mean? Like it's not a versus thing. Cause I want everyone to have success. I think there's more than enough success to have around, but at the end of the day, if you're looking at cutting one song and there's 10 songs for it, they don't care if, you know, it's just, they is anyone, but like you're going against the greats already. So it's like, you got to just go have that thing where it's like, I'm going to write enough songs to have written, you know what I mean? Like it's reps, it's building the muscle, and it's through that I've learned everything that I know about writing from writing with other people and trying and to take what I think they do that is good and make it my own, because it's what I've been exposed to. It's all what you expose yourself to. I would be in Nashville, I would be in LA, I would be somewhere, wherever the kind of music that you want to write, that's where they write it. I would try your best to be there, and then just try your best to write as many songs as you can. And that's all I want to do at this point. I just want to write as many songs as I can without, you know, not being able to write good songs because I've written too many songs, which I've gotten to that point. But write the songs, and like eventually you'll be like, wow, this one's really good and everyone else thinks so too. That's crazy. I never thought that would actually end up happening. Like, you know, that's totally. That's all it is. So I don't know. That was a long-winded one sentence of write the songs, but truly that's all it's been for me.
Now, to close the interview, I always like to ask my guests what a piece of advice is that you would give kind of an aspiring musician, or just something that you've learned on your journey.
My thing is like, to me, I look around and there's unlikely people succeeding. You know what I mean? To me. So I'm like, anybody can fucking do it. Like anybody, I'm a big fan of speaking it. When I was 18, 19, I was like, I want to be a part of Big Loud. I don't know how. I wasn't really writing that much then, but I've said, this is what I want to be a part of. And I spoke it, and I tried to make step towards it, and baby step, baby step, baby step. It's all about just speaking and trying to go for it, to me. So that's the advice I would give. But yeah, believe you can do it, because people have done it that might go or might not, like may or may not belong.
Now, as someone that works in A&R, what is something that not only that you look for in a song that gets that you hear, or like if you're out listening to an artist, what do you look for?
Man, it's a wide variety of things. I think, you know, it's the artists and writers that I've signed since I've been over here, you know, and work with, it's, you know, they work hard. You know, when I met Jordan Fletcher, it was Rome River Jam, and he was selling merch for Muscadine Bloodline, and it was Old Dominion, Langston, Riley, Muscadine, it's supposed to be Joe Fortner, and open up acoustic. Well, Joe, luckily, you know, sorry Joe, but your car broke down that day, and I watched Jordan Fletcher without a cart carry these boxes across this big field one by one, wipes his face, gets up and sound checks. I'm like, who the hell is this guy? Plays his 20-minute acoustic thing, goes back to slinging merch. I'm like, man, that guy was good, and he's out here working his ass off. So, just hard working, and and then sometimes people got the juice. You know what I mean? Like Jordan, I signed Jordan Gray, and Jordan's having a lot of success in the first year and a half of his pub deal. He's got a lot of major holds. I can't really talk about with who because I don't want to jinx him, but and then track 1 on the Walker Hayes record and 2 on Lily Rose that are already out. So I mean, he had a good first year, and Jeb Gibson. I mean, Jeb is a little superstar, man. Like Jeb is just, I love my roster of people over here. Lynn Hutton, he's got Eric Church cuts, and nobody has those. He's all over the Jameson Rogers stuff. Drew Green, got a couple with Langston. And the Leaving Austin boys, man, they're a good time. So, I really enjoy my roster over here. And it's, there's not just one thing. Sometimes you just hear a song and sometimes you just see somebody and you're like, that's it. You know what I mean? It's hard to really pinpoint, but somebody that just works hard and who's not scared to put the work in, because dude, I mean, I don't know what the number is now, but when I moved here, 84 people a day moved here. They wanted my spot. They wanted their spot. They want your spot. You know what I mean? They want to do what you're doing. And, you just always have to, outwork the man behind it. It ain't what they say about a bear chasing you. You ain't got to be the smartest. You just got to be the quickest. And, you got bears chasing you every day in this town. So,
yeah, especially someone like you that's been in the business their whole life. What's your advice to someone that's pursuing music right now?
Oh, wow. I mean, it's so tough now. I mean, my kids are really good musicians, and they just kind of grew up in the wrong time. I'm hoping that someday that it will be somewhat like it was before, but I don't know. But the real thing is, if you're going to do it, you have to be all in. You can't do it halfway. You have to believe and never give up and never settle. Just keep going until you think it's the best you got, then move on to the next thing. And you can listen to people, but you need to listen to yourself more than anything else, because when it's not going to happen, and you also know when it's happening, but people just don't know yet.
Now, to close out my interviews, I always like to ask my guests what a piece of advice they would give to another aspiring musician, something you've learned along the way.
Yeah, 100%. There is a lot that I've learned along the way. Trying to think what phase. There's so many different phases of like the journey that there's like advice to give. I guess for like starting out, I think that it's like the same advice everybody gives, but just like to have the courage and everything to try and to fail, and that it's like okay to write a ton of bad songs. I kind of come at songwriting from the perspective that truthfully I think anybody could do it, which is not something a lot of people I think believe, but like my experience is that I could not do songwriting. I did not know how to write songs, and I like really did like dive into what I considered to be quality people and quality songwriting, and like learned how to do it. And so I think that it's actually more accessible than people give it credit for. I think that there's no lost opportunity if you like look at people like Craig Wiseman and like Michael Hardy. Like that's like literally what I did. I literally would sit there and listen to their songs and like analyze how they did stuff, and learn the songwriting craft from a distance, I guess. And I think that from a perspective of advice, like the best thing I could say would be to like saturate yourself in high quality music to the point that you understand why it is high quality. And I think that at that point, most people, if you have like the musical tendencies, can probably write songs.
Now, to close out the interview, I always like to ask my guests one piece of advice you'd like to give to any other musician out there that's trying to pursue a career in music.
You just do it and don't stop. Like the only way you lose is if you quit. And I'm living proof of that. That's really it. You either do it or you don't. There's no I feel like it or it's hard today. Just wake up, remember who you are and what your purpose is. And if this is your purpose, then what a beautiful purpose. It's really worth pursuing.
Yes. What's a piece of advice you would give to someone that's pursuing a career as a musician right now?
I would say, be hard on yourself in terms of knowing that where you are in the pack. Try to write with the people that are better than you. I mean, we all do. We all try to write with people that will teach us something, and just get in the rooms and keep doing it, and don't give up, and really be as brutally honest as you can about your lyric, about your music. Just try to hang it out there, because there's, the more that you get in touch with who you are, the more you'll bring to your art.
Now, to close out my interviews, I always like to ask my guests one piece of advice that you'd give to people that are trying to pursue music right now, something that you've learned along the way.
There's so many, but okay. The biggest piece of advice I could give you, or anyone really, is when it comes to being a professional. Like, I mean, there's a million things I could talk about as far as artistic approaches, how, technical approaches, et cetera, et cetera. But if we're talking about being a professional, as in like this roof over my head, I pay for it by playing music.
Yeah.
The thing that I would say is most important is to know your value as a musician in a dollars and like a true number sense. And what I mean by that is talk to other professionals and talk numbers. Don't talk vagaries. Talk about how much you get paid on a gig. Talk about your salary. Talk about what X pays per day. Talk about what per diem is. Talk numbers. So many people are scared to do it. I am not scared to do it. I mean, I'm not going to do it right here, but like, I have buddies who know that I'm not scared to talk. They know the level of my gig, and they'll call me and I'll talk very real numbers with them. And the reason I say that that's important is that it helps us know our value, one. Two, it helps you from staying in a situation that's maybe not good for you for way too long, and maybe you're squandering part of your career because you think you're getting good pay when in fact you're not. You know what I mean? Like, maybe you could be getting paid a lot better for something you actually enjoy doing more, but you might trick yourself into thinking like, I'm on this like kind of crappy gig with guys I don't really care about, but like it pays enough. Yeah, but like if you're good and you're good and you spend the time honing your craft and all those kinds of things, and you tick all the boxes along the way as a professional, then you should know your value. And the best way to do that is to talk to other professionals, even if you're not yet. Like if you were to come to me and be like, hey man, what's the going rate on like a Broadway shift in Nashville? I wouldn't know that, but I would be like, how about you call my buddy who does know that, and he'll tell you, and that kind of thing, because especially, I mean, as sidemen, as songwriters, famously now, with the whole Spotify thing and the payout with the streamings and whatnot, it's like, music is constantly being devalued, especially musicianship. So to perpetuate it as a viable career for not just me, I'm talking everybody that's going to come after me, I make it a point to always know my worth, set a rate. Like, this is what I get paid. Like, if you want me to do a mobile bass session sitting in this chair right here with all my stuff around me, like, I got a rate. And sorry, if you can't pay it, like, I'll tell you who can do it for your rate, but I'm not going to do less than that rate. That's no disrespect. It's just how it is. I know my value.
I like to close all my interviews out by asking my guests a piece of advice that's something you've learned along the way that you kind of pass on to the next generation of musicians.
Man, my biggest thing is to always celebrate other people's success, because in this industry, it's really easy to compare yourself and see where other people are at in comparison to you, and it can get you down sometimes if other people are just like, feels like their success is just flying and you kind of feel like you're stalling and something like that. It's always important to remember to be happy for other people, and it can be healthy for it to motivate you to work harder and stuff like that, but always celebrate other people's triumphs and successes, because obviously that's what you want people to do for you, because you're going to have success too. And one day you're not gonna want people to be like, oh dude, I'm so pissed that he just got like a #1 song. Like, that's not what you want. You want your best friends to be like, dude, hell yeah, I love that for you, man. Like, I love you. Congratulations. Like, that's what you want. So, like, always remember to be that guy who is encouraging everyone else and supporting other people, because it's, you know, it'll go a long way in your career. Because I think this town is such a people town, and, you know, I think the people who really stick it out and make it are the people that other people want to be around. You know, it's like, if you're somebody who's kind of an a-hole, like, I don't know how long you're really gonna make it. You know, I know some people like that, and they didn't make it super long. So it's just kind of like, and sometimes it's not even like a talent thing. It's really just like, you can't get rights because other people are like, I don't want to write with this guy because he's kind of a douchebag. So it's like, you know, just be a sweet guy, just be a sweet person, sweet guy, sweet girl, support other people, always encourage other people, and like be there for, you know, be there for their successes. And, you know, yours is going to come, and, you know, hopefully they'll be right there next to you when you have yours. So
I like to close all my interviews out by asking what your advice is to other musicians. I know you've touched on networking, but if there's anything else that you think that would be good, that's something you've learned along the way.
I guess it'd be, you know, part of networking is just be genuine and be kind and just be outgoing and meet everybody that you can. And if, you know, I would say just keep working at it, because things that you think maybe aren't that good, someone else can see the light in and can make it great. So I'd say just keep pushing, man, because, you know, it took me 10 years of being in Nashville before, you know, anything started happening. So network, keep pushing. If it's going to help you out in your career, go for it.
Now, I like to close out all my interviews by asking my guests, what's a piece of advice that you've learned on your journey kind of through music, and what you would tell any artists that are trying to get to where you are right now?
I mean, just treat songwriting like working out. You know, if you want like big biceps, or, you know, you want to like bench more than everybody else, I mean, you need to go into the gym and push weights around, you know? So it's like, for some reason, I don't feel like I viewed it that way from the beginning. I felt like you have to get lucky and be given certain opportunities to be successful. And I don't think I viewed it as like, no, if you just literally do it longer than other people, you know, and like work harder, that you can actually just do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I think just, you're like working out, like just make it a point to go in there and just write, like work that muscle in your brain that's like being creative and like just coming up with things. And then co-writing, like learning how to work with different personalities, you know, and some of them are going to be terrible and some of them are going to be great. But either way, take something away from every co-write. Maybe you don't love writing with a person, you won't ever do it again, but maybe there's one thing that they did that you did enjoy. Like they never settled on a line. They always continued to make it better, you know, just because it works in the melody and rhymes maybe doesn't mean that it's the best thing you could possibly do. So I don't know. Take something out of every experience that you're co-writing and just do it, honestly. Like just get in there and work. If you sit there and work longer, you know, I truly believe that you will absolutely get every single thing that you could ever possibly dream of, you know.
Now, I like to close all my interviews by asking my guests a piece of advice that you've learned kind of on your journey in music, and something you would kind of tell a younger musician.
Oh, that's a great one. You know, if I could give myself one piece of advice, looking back, it would probably be to stop worrying so much about where I'm going or where I want to be or how I can get where I want to be, and to focus more on how I can contribute and be a blessing where I am, you know. And then if you do that effectively, then that will lead to other stuff, and just trust that the road in front of you will be pleasing, you know, but just try to be present and contribute where you are, you know.
Now, I like to close all my interviews by asking my guests a piece of advice you've learned along your journey. And I mean, you've lived so many different lives throughout your musical journey.
Yeah.
What's one piece of advice you would give to other musicians out there?
Man, that's such a great question. And two, I think I kind of talking about my peers that I work with. You know, listen to other people who have been around you. You know, if you're in a session, listen to what they're playing. There's so much to be learned and so much to be inspired by all the talent that there is in this city and other music cities across the globe. You know, it always makes music better when everyone's listening to each other, and that's just been a huge thing for me, is feeding off of everyone else. And the other thing too that I always talk about, you know, just because I've ended up doing so many different things, is just, you know, kind of follow your heart. And I know that sounds so trite to say, oh, follow your heart, but, you know, figure out what it is that you love, figure it as what that fills your cup up, that makes you want to get up in the morning and do, and go after it, man. You know, it's one of those things where, if you just be true to who you are and do what you want to do, you're going to find success in it more likely than not, and you're going to have a fun time doing it. So that's probably the best advice that I can give. It's just find what you want to do, find your own voice, and go after it.
Now, I like to close all my interviews asking my guests a piece of advice you might have learned along your way, becoming a professional musician. And also, I'd like for you to touch on kind of how you found like a family life balance being on the road. I know you touched on having 2 sons. So yeah.
Yeah. What was the first part of your question again?
Kind of just anything you've learned as a musician, kind of, or something you'd tell your younger self.
Yeah. Honestly, just to not take things so seriously. Like, just loosen up and have fun. That's something I've learned over the past several years, I would say. And just like, you know, there's so many situations where you get into, and like, at least for me and probably a lot of other people, where it's like, there's a bit of fear involved. There's always some nerves involved, and like finding ways to kind of get through that. And like, once you push through that stuff, it makes it, you know, it's like, yes, I did that. Like, I was so scared of whatever the situation was, and I did it. I pushed through it. And so, and as far as like the family life and stuff like that, I mean, it can definitely be hard. You know, we're on the kind of tail end of like a 2-week run. And, but you know, when I'm home, and so we get to do really cool stuff when I'm home. So
now I close all my interviews asking, what's your advice to someone that wants to be in your shoes in a few years, someone that wants to be maybe the head engineer of a studio or just kind of engineering sessions?
Man, I've got a lot of things to say about that. I guess just pretty trite, but it's just about hard work. Just knowing what you do, like personally, what your strengths are, and just working on those and excelling at those. I've always just tried to figure out what my competitive advantage has been, and it's changed over the years.
Yeah.
And just kind of lean into that and make sure that, like, one of the things I focus on now is just like tracking full bands and session management. And there used to be so many great engineers in town that did that well. And I feel like just with folks retiring, there's a lot fewer. And it's just about being fast and being good. And that's just practice. And I always talk about being invisible, especially on the engineering side. And so it's something I tell my interns. That's something I would tell my assistants, is our job is to be invisible. And that means a lot of different things. It just means, like, you know, we keep our mouth shut, especially when you're new. You know, like if you're an intern or assistant, it's not that you don't know what you're doing or your opinion doesn't matter, but there's so much talent on the floor. Like if we're talking about a full band session, engineer, producer, and, 4 to 7 musicians on the floor, that's a couple hundred years of experience. So you're a couple years of YouTube videos and working in your bedroom, while it's valuable, doesn't compare. So you just kind of stay quiet and stay attentive. And then the invisibility is also about just being prepared. Mm-hmm. So, not messing up. So again, going back to, you're good at what you do. So you can handle it competently. You can handle changes. Your DAW so well that when somebody asks you to do something, even if it's something that you don't do every single day,
you've got a decent idea how to do it quickly. Because again, here in Nashville, we move very, very quickly. If you're talking 5 songs in 3 hours,
yeah,
just an insane pace. Records go slower than that, but yeah, just, and so knowing what you do, and then also being prepared. So knowing like, well, we might have so many guitar overdubs, or we might do perk overdubs. So having those mics up, if they're different mics, having the channels ready in your DAW, or the ability to do it very quickly. And by quickly, I mean instantly. Like, you don't have time to create new tracks, name them, adjust input, output, press record. That's like way too much time. We could have already punched in half the song at that point. So yeah, it's just about hard work and that kind of idea of being invisible, and gets into the hard work. And, you know, early on, I always say you can't say no to anything.
Yeah.
You just have to say yes, and you kind of roll with the punches. And, you know, I do, like, if it's just something you can't do, like, this isn't the old Hollywood idea of just say yes and then learn later. I don't believe in that, because people are putting their trust in you that you know what you're doing. So if it's really outside your wheelhouse, and that's something that happens in Nashville, a lot of my work comes from other engineers and producers, and I send work elsewhere. There's a lot of work for us. So it's like, you know what, I can technically do that, but you know who's really good at that kind of thing? You know, my buddy over here. So go talk to them, and it's always returned. So yeah, you just don't say no. So then you can get the experience and the clientele. I'm at a point in my career where I do say no, and I'm really trying to find specific types of clients to work with. So, but to get there, you got to do it all in the beginning, and you learn a lot from those clients.
Yeah.
Like some of the hardest clients I've learned, whether it's patience, whether it's keeping my mouth shut, whether it's just dealing with the worst vocal I've ever heard in my life, those kinds of things.
Now, to close out, I always like to ask my guests a piece of advice that you've learned along your way, not only as someone that's looking to be a tour manager, but someone that works on the industry side, maybe advice to artists out there pursuing a career.
Man, advice for artists. You know, I think the biggest advice, and what I've been harping on lately, is just be original and be yourself. Because I know that sounds so dumb and cliche, but it kind of bothers me that like so many people just do the same thing and like do these writers rounds that nobody cares about. You know what I mean? It's just like, stand out, do something different. Like, don't be afraid to like break the barrier. I mean, with our stuff, like we're mixing, you know, rock with country, and you know, we're making it work. And you know, Michael's making music that he wants to make, and you know, he's, you know, one of the most original guys I know. And you know, he is who he is. There's nothing fake about it. You know, that's why I believe, you know, why he took off. You know, it's being original. And like, if you're just gonna do the same old stuff, like, yeah, you can have a hit, but you know, if you're, you know, not original, you're gonna die off. It's originality will take you to the next level. Even if it's a long, you know, incline, you're still gonna go up. You know, that's how a long career lasts, is originality. And you know, not doing what everyone else is doing, or saying the same old, you know, truck this and truck that kind of line. You know, it's just, yeah, it gets tired. And especially when, you know, I'm listening to all these songs that come in. Some songs I'm just like, yeah, it's just not gonna work. But yeah, just originality. And even like, you know, someone's, you know, not even the artist career, but just like crew or industry career, just, you know, be yourself, hardworking, and willing to learn everything. You know, I think, you know, even myself, like I'm learning something new every day. There's always something to learn. And if you don't have that mindset, you're just going to get stuck. Or, you know, no one likes someone that is not willing to be better or get better at something. You know, I could know everything there is, but someone could be doing something differently that actually works better.
and I can
Right.
take that and apply it to stuff that I already know and become better. It's really all about just, you know, upping your game and just, you know, being aware of what's new, what's not working, you know, just a million different things.
I like to close my interviews by asking all my guests a piece of advice you've learned along your journey to someone that wants to be a professional musician.
Okay. I mean, there's a lot of advice. Try to be the worst member of every band you're in. Be on time. Be prepared. I think those are the biggest things I can say. Being prepared is probably the single best piece of advice I can give anyone. Whatever that takes, you know, if it takes locking yourself in a room for a day to learn the music, you know, I try to do my best to not use any charts if I don't have to, on like a, you know, a pro level gig.
Yeah.
So my first, you know, I started with Jody by subbing for a friend, and I didn't use any charts. I had the music for 3 weeks or so I had plenty of time to learn it, but I wanted it so ingrained that I didn't need charts. And, you know, charts can be a double-edged sword because you can think you have it memorized, but you actually don't. So, but all that's to say, preparation is key. Like I said, I'm not the best guitar player on the planet, but I will come to your gig prepared, even if, you know, even if it's like a 20-minute set at, you know, some random bar downtown. I feel like it shows that you respect the music. It shows that you respect the person that's paying you. So that's my single piece of advice, is be prepared.
Now, I like to close all my interviews asking my guests, what's a piece of advice you've learned along your journey that you give to someone that wants to be a professional musician like you?
Man, piece of advice. I would say, like, by no means have I made it, you know, but the thing, what I do is, like, if you're going to do, like, whatever, I think in life, if you're whatever you're going to do, like, you, like, really have to work at it. Like, and it's like, to get to where you realistically, like, where your dreams lie, like, to get to even think about achieving that,
yeah,
you have to work so hard. And it doesn't matter what you do, whether it's like fashion or like business world, like anything, you have to do, like, you have to be that thing, and you have to, like, that has to be your thing. You have to know everything about it, and just be the best at what you do. Like, really, like, I am really trying to be the best steel guitar player, and I'm really trying to be the best writer, and I'm really trying to be the best, you know, producer guy, like track guy, you know, like, I'm really trying to be the best at whatever I do.
For sure.
And I think that's, yeah, just really work at whatever you do, because in some form you'll see it pay off.
Now, I like to close all my interviews. What's a piece of advice that you've learned along your journey in music that you give to an aspiring artist or someone that wants to be in management like you?
That's a really good question. Actually, I had somebody tell me this the other day, is treat everybody you meet like you're not working with them the rest of your life. Because it's very possible, especially in Nashville, Tennessee, very small town. And you've heard this since you were a kid, but treat everybody the way you'd like to be treated. So everybody's human. Everybody honestly has the same goal here. We're all just chasing this dream. We work in music, man. Like, we could be miserable working, like, which some people probably love this, but you could be an accountant working in a cubicle or something. I mean, which, more power to you, but we work in music. So we have very little to complain about. So just keep on going. Don't give up, because there's gonna be times where, like, you're gonna be like, why am I doing this? This is not what I signed up for, and it's just all part of the journey. Just keep on going.
Now, I like to close all my interviews asking, what's a piece of advice you've learned along the way that you'd give to someone that wants to be a professional musician like yourself?
Well, there's one quote I live by. I don't even know where I heard it, who I heard it from. And I don't, you know, obviously this doesn't necessarily apply to everyone. I know people that have done it a different way. But for me, what helped was honestly the commitment and dedication you have to your craft or your dream, really. This quote can apply to anyone's dream, but I use it in this sense, is that it's the best piece of advice I can give. And when I used to teach at School of Rock down in Florida, you know, like parents would, you know, slightly older kids in their younger teens would ask me kind of the same question. And this is the answer I would give them, is that if you are undecided between being in the music industry or doing anything else, like any other occupation. So like if you're like, man, I really want to be a drummer, but I kind of want to be a doctor. I don't know. If you can't make that distinction, then go be a doctor, because you have to know that it is the 100% the thing that you want to do, and that it makes up your life, because there's going to be a long road to getting to make that dream a career. I think. I mean, it's definitely possible. It is not an impossible dream, but you have to put your whole self into it. You can't compartmentalize your mind towards something else. You know, I mean, there's plenty of people I know that did go to college and they have degrees in music, and I know a lot of people. Some of those people do play for, you know, large acts. I know some of them here, but there are a larger group of people that I know have like music degrees that don't even work in the industry, or you know, so. It's just like, I tried to go to college, and college for me just felt like high school all over again. So I was like, I'm done. And I just had to get me in a van and drive me somewhere to go play. Like that was my thing. I wanted to tour. That's 50% of the reason why I do this. I mean, I love music. I love playing drums, but the traveling and the touring for me is a big part of it for me personally.
For sure.
But best piece of advice to wrap up, you have to commit your whole self, mentally, physically, and do anything necessary to give yourself the best chance or opportunity to live your dream. As corny as that sounds, but it's a real thing.
So I like to close all my interviews with a piece of advice that you've learned along your journey in music. You've been through so many different phases. What's something you picked up that you would give to a younger musician to wanting to be in your spot one day?
Wow. Never think of being worthy of giving advice. Man, for me, making connections it has to be a very organic thing. It has to be real. For me, meeting people and becoming friends with people, it always seemed to happen at festivals, or on shows. No matter what it was, just being interested in what someone else does. I think that really goes a long way, and making genuine connections with people. You know, people in Nashville can tell if you're just trying to be friends with them to use them to get to the next step.
Yeah.
You know? But being willing to just learn from somebody, that's really important. Always staying teachable. I think that's really big, because you can create some really special connections that way.
For sure. And actually, just one more thing too. I know on your page, like I think your bio is like Jesus first. How has your faith helped you along the way, like in your musical journey?
Knowing that God is in control of every tiny detail of my life gives me comfort that nowhere else can give me. You know, I can sleep sound at night knowing that if something didn't go my way, I know it went God's way.
Yeah.
And that means that whatever path or twist and turn happens, that if God is glorified in it, then I'm satisfied.
So I like to close all my interviews asking, what's a piece of advice you've learned along the way that you give to someone that wants to be in your shoes?
Don't have a backup plan. I don't know if that's good advice, but I know everyone that does have a backup plan stops.
Yeah.
Because it's a hard road. And like, don't get me wrong, Nashville is the best move I've ever made. And I think the opportunity there is greater than anywhere I've ever been. Yeah. But Toronto was amazing. Like I definitely had a good career touring Canada. But again, you want to branch. It's like the big leagues in the States. You know, you want to get here because everyone. And then once you make it here, you make it everywhere. You know? So essentially. And just America's awesome. The amount of places you can go here, like you can see everything. You can see the desert, all the like the ocean. So like I love palm trees, you know. And so I would just say just don't stop and don't have a backup plan, because I feel like you will take it. If I had one, as sad as it is to say, back when it was low, I would have done it. Yeah. You know, because I didn't know where I never planned on being a hired guy.
Yeah.
You know,
That must be good advice, because I met Jimmy Allen backstage at a show one time, and he said the same thing. If you give a backup plan, you're planning to fail.
You're going to do it, yeah, for sure.
Even that 5%, you could be putting that towards your music.
Absolutely. And if you're getting into it for the money, stop. You know, because it's not that. Don't get me wrong, if it goes well, it can be amazing. You know, it's not a job. Like the job is the travel. That's like that's the grind. This is so fun. Like I'm talking to you right now, and you're awesome. And this isn't work. For sure, it's my favorite thing I've ever done, and it's the only thing I've never gotten bored of.
Now, I like to close all my interviews out with asking, what's a piece of advice you've learned along your way and would give to someone that wants to be a professional musician like yourself?
Yeah, so I think, the main thing to keep in mind is a lot of other career paths seem secure. It's like, oh, well, you'll get a salary right out of the gate, or you'll get insurance, or this is a more secure path. And really, it's just it's all about your perspective. Nothing's secure. I mean, even at a salary job, you could be let go at any time. So there's perceived security, but if you're passionate about pursuing music, then I would encourage you just, carve your own path. Just make sure that you are willing to take risks. You're willing to say yes to pretty much anything and everything. And, eventually hard work will pay off. And I'll also encourage people, don't take work or gigs based on what you think might happen. Just make sure that okay, this gig happens on this day and it pays this amount. And if you're willing to do that, then commit to it for that reason only. And then if things end up escalating and getting bigger or something in the future, awesome. But then that'll help keep you from getting jaded and expecting something more than what's being offered. So
for sure, yeah,
don't be afraid to dive right in, and then say yes to everything, essentially.
Now, I like to close my interviews by asking, what's a piece of advice that you've learned on your journey in music, and someone that would want to be like a rap or a producer in the current rap game?
Wait, you're talking about producers, right?
Yeah, a producer.
For sure. Like I said before, is to have quality music before you send it out to people, before you work with people. Because I'd rather someone take their time, spend time, perfect their craft, have their own sound, and then send me stuff, compared to just right off the bat, just wanting to get success and just start sending to people, because at the end of the day, it's all about the music. If the music isn't good, it doesn't matter who you work with.
For sure.
Yeah. So that's for sure what I'd say.
I like to close all my interviews by asking, what's a piece of advice you've learned along your journey that you'd give to someone younger, looking up to you right now?
Oh, man, I've heard this a lot lately, and so it's not an original thing, but it's true, is bloom where you're planted. You can look at my life and my story so far, my journey in life, is I didn't drop everything and move to Nashville because I didn't feel like that was the right thing to do. And here I am, working in Nashville every week with a gig with a guy that's been very successful. We can so easily get distracted by what's next for me. Even with you with this podcast, how do I grow this podcast? Is there another podcast that I could jump on? Yeah. And you can apply that to anything in life, whether you're working at a 9-to-5 or are a musician, or you're doing a podcast, or you're an artist. I mean, it's all those things, and really this being thankful and having gratitude for where you are right now.
For sure.
And I've been extremely guilty over my journey doing this professionally, going, well, if we could only get to this, if Dylan could only have this many hits, or if I could only have this endorsement, or if I could only, and man, you miss out on so much amazing things God's doing around you when you do that.
Yeah.
And so bloom when you're planted. That's kind of been my life motto. And so many things in my life have God has worked out because I was just patient and stayed planning where I was. You know, I've gotten to be a part of, you know, quadruple platinum songs. Met my future wife just right where I was planted. You know, there's just so many things. You know, I mean, I could list a million things, and you would have to like edit all this. I don't want to do that. But that's I would say that's my solid piece of advice. And this is a side note. I think this is given. Man, this would be cool. So many people in our generation. How old are you?
20.
So you're 20. So I've got a decade on you. So I'm speaking to your generation right now. Because it doesn't seem like that big of a gap, but it is. It's crazy. Like, life for 20 to 22-year-olds. We have a couple of 21-year-olds traveling with us on the bus, and, like, that's when I realized, I was like, okay, I'm, like, getting older. Like, things are different now. Man, this dadgummit, be nice to people. Don't be arrogant. You know, I ruined so many friendships or could have been friendships by letting my arrogance get the best of me. You know, just be humble and be kind. Be nice to people. Put your yes on the table. Somebody asks you messaged me randomly about doing this podcast. Like, heck yeah, why not?
For sure.
You know, so you just never know. You just never know if you just be kind and have your yes on the table, what God's gonna do. You know.
For sure.
And so that's my other side piece of advice. After the bloom,
just be nice, right?
This be cool, dude.
What's the piece of advice that you've learned along your journey that you'd want to give to a young artist or producer moving to town, wanting to be where you are?
Just like keep going. When I moved to town, they used to say for songwriters, they used to say that Nashville was a 10-year town, and that you could expect to grind it out for 10 years before maybe you got a cut or a big hit. And I don't know if that's true anymore, but it really is the thing, you know, the tortoise and the hare. If you keep going, you'll just meet people in this circle. Your circle will get smaller, and always you can always like ask people. Like when I've been at sessions as a bass player, I would ask the engineer, man, hey, why are you using that Valhalla reverb? Or how do you do your compression for vocals? And everybody has always been, guitar players, fellow bass players, like so helpful. Hey man, let me show you this. You'll like this. And that's a big thing, is like when you get with people that are further down the road in Nashville, everyone's been great and super helpful. It's really more camaraderie than competition, I'd say.
But I like to close my interviews with, what's a piece of advice that you would tell someone that wants to be in your shoes that's kind of on the come up in the music industry right now?
Now, is this if they don't live in Nashville already, or if they do? Or
it could be either or. Just someone that wants to make it in the music business. Maybe they have to move to Nashville. Maybe that's step one.
So yes, point blank right there, step one. If you want to make it in the music industry, I would say move to Nashville. It's not called Music City for a reason. You know, it's like, this is where everything's made.
For sure.
LA is great, New York's great, but Nashville is where everything happens. And you definitely have to move to Nashville. And I would say also, when you move here, don't get discouraged if nothing happens within 2 to 3 years. It takes time. They call it a 5 to 10 year town. So if nothing happens, even after 5 years, you know, like maybe then start to reevaluate, but like still give yourself some time. So it doesn't hurt. But yeah, definitely have to be in Nashville, network as much as you can. I would say one of the biggest things, play out as much as possible. The more people who see you play, and if you're a good player, your name's going to get around town.
For sure.
And don't be afraid to start playing on Broadway. You know, if you want to just start making an income playing music, that's a great way to start. I did that. And then what I should have said when I was visiting Nashville is I met a guy at a clothing store that's no longer around, but he and I got coffee when I first moved here. 5 months into town, he was leaving a gig that was a touring gig, nothing major, but he contacted me and said, hey, you should come audition. I did. I got that gig. I did it for about 6-7 months before meeting Luke. And it wasn't a bus gig. It was just a fun touring gig going around the country and stuff, but it was still a great experience.
For sure.
And so yeah, I mean, just don't say no to anything that, unless you think it's really not for you, or it's not going to suit what you want to do. But for the most part, think about it first, but then, if you think it's right, say yes. So.
Now, I like to close all my interviews asking, what's a piece of advice that you would give to younger players out there, something you've learned along your journey that would help them get to where you are now?
Well, I think the two things I would say is it's never too late. Like, my story is very odd. I'm in my mid 30s and I just switched into playing music full time.
Yeah.
And that's, I'm the old man in Zach's band, and I don't care. I love it. I'm having a blast. Everyone is so friendly and respectful to me. I mean, we just played in Pittsburgh last night, and my parents came to see Zach for the first time. Awesome. And he was passing around a poster before the show, and he was having everyone in Zach's band signed it, everyone in Charles' band signed it. And I thought, oh, this is going to be for the venue. And then he gave it to my parents.
Oh, wow.
And I was like very touched,
That was nice.
So I would say it's never too late to follow your dreams and make a pivot in your career. And the other thing I would say is always lead with kindness, because that's what's worked for me. Everyone's going through different things out here in the world, and we need to be respectful of that. But when we're talking about, your profession and the connections you make with people, work hard and lead with kindness. That's my motto, and that's what has worked for me.
Wow. So much great advice has been given in this episode. I have to say that the thing I've learned the most by interviewing all these musicians is that if you don't enjoy the climb, then you won't enjoy success that much, because the climb is when you really put the work in to make success taste only that much sweeter. And the other thing is, if you put in the work, success is bound to happen. So take the time to rehearse, take the time to write that song, and don't give up. And remember, everyone starts small. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Make sure to subscribe, leave a comment, and check out all our other interviews. We'll see you guys next time.